Hey guys, it's Josh, and welcome back to the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad, your favorite podcast for learning how to balance between being a functional adult and a raging dumpster fire. And let's be honest, we've all been a bit of a dumpster fire. Joining us this week inside the Bachelor Pad is a guest that moves with purpose. And I don't just mean on the dance floor. She is a speaker, a certified relationship whisperer through tango. Yep, she teaches you how to lead, how to follow, and maybe how to seduce with your feet and your heart. She's been lighting up screens for over a decade as the host as the Tutu Tango Show. But when she's not showing folks how to move in sync and just feel the rhythm, she may be hosting a tea party like it's Bridgerton. Please welcome the sensual, the soulful, the steps are never just steps, Linda Sutton. Linda, thank you so much for making time this morning. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. And that was such a delicious introduction. I look forward to this conversation. Thank you so much.
Of course, of course. Can you tell me a little bit about you, about your story? How did you find this spice of life that you have come to develop?
Oh my goodness. So it's funny that you say that. And I'll keep it in a narrow space because I am a bit of a creator. So I love to be creative in a variety of mediums. But my passion in the forefront is dance. And I actually just released a book called So You Think You Can't Dance, which is into that origin story. I had no intentions of being a professional dancer and being in this space, but it kind of discovered me. And it started off with a car accident, actually. I was in recovery. I always loved to dance, but I was a bit of a tomboy. I was very clumsy growing up. And so dance was kind of out of the picture because of not only being clumsy, but I had a couple of growth spurts when I was a teenager that kind of resulted in some problems with my knees. Most people don't know that about my story. And so like being a dancer was never something I considered. And it was in recovery from a car accident. I cross trained in physical therapy. They gave me swimming and dancing to kind of repair my body. And that's when I took my first dance classes ever. And so that was the beginning of the story. It wasn't a positive beginning because I had a very negative experience with my very first dance instructor. But that kind of negative experience and that negative feedback that I was getting from her in my initial interaction that somehow must have planted the seeds in my soil that kept bringing it back into my life. I started out as corporate consulting, and the universe and the path and the spirit just kept speaking to me like over here, over here. And it unfolded for me. And here I am today, double digit years later, using dance to help people repair and create passionate relationships.
That is amazing. And it's always funny how sometimes tragedy can spark or redefine some point of our life. And having a teacher that you don't necessarily click with sometimes can dull the flame. But when it's for you, it's for you. And
Mm-hmm.
that passion will find a way to reemerge. So we're glad that that flame still burned bright in you.
Absolutely. Sometimes your greatest adversity is the beginning of your hero's journey.
Now, you were talking about how you use tango to coach couples, or it's, like a basis, really one of probably the most unique approaches I've seen, as a metaphor and literally for a relationship. So, what is probably the wildest transformation you've seen on or off the dance floor?
Transformations. Now this is where it gets fun because I have my case studies and probably the biggest one was a couple that had been married for decades. And I love to lead with them because that's something that you see in relationships over time. People believe that over time, relationships kind of get routine and stale and fall off and the passion is lost. You love the person, but you're not in love and passionate with them. And I had a couple that had been married for many years, almost 50 when they came to me and they were referred to me. And it was clear that the husband in the couple was ready to kind of dance, but he was more interested in dancing with other partners in the classroom than his partner, who was mature and in a similar age range. And typically in my classroom settings, I have very, very clear boundaries in alignment with the tradition of the dance where singles work with singles and couples work with couples. I think that's in my class and in the way that I teach, that's a very, very clear boundary because if you're married or if that's your partner, then that's the person that you should be developing the connection with, the intimacy with, the bond, the closeness, what I'm teaching, you should be working with your partner on, not some random stranger on the street, especially if you come in as a married couple. Like to me, that's a very clear boundary unless we ask for permissions to work on something for a specific reason. So because I picked up on that, I asked for permission to do some coaching and it was a small, intimate class that I had at the time. So I got permission from all the couples and I was like, I'm going to take a little bit of a departure, but it's very purposeful, but only with your permission. And so they allowed, I had a really young couple and I had this particular couple and I said, for this particular exercise, I want to coach you, but this is one of those rare occasions where I'm going to ask you to change partners for just this exercise. The lady in the couple, she gave me a sad eye. She gave me the sad eye. She was like, I know you're not about to give my husband to this young, beautiful lady over here. And I just gave her, kind of a glance and say, just trust me in this process. I'm here. You know why I'm here. You know my passion and my commitment. So I did, and I broke them up and I gave them an exercise. And so the husband went over to work with the young lady and the young man came to work with her. And I gave them the drill and I asked them to work on it for a tanda, 3 songs, and tango is a tanda. And you're supposed to commit to work with your partner for those 3 songs. So I did, and I gave them the exercise. And at first she was very, very apologetic to her partner. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not as good as your partner. I can't do all the things that she can do. And he was like, let's not worry about that. I'm here to see what we can do. And so the young man started to lead her in the steps. In the same time, her partner, her husband was working with this other young lady. And he was able to do all these things with his partner, with her, the older, more mature lady. And he started to lead the steps that I taught them. She was surprised, like, oh, I can do it. And then he was like, well, let's see what else we can do. And he started to lead all of these things. And she was like excited and giggling and laughing. And one of the things is called a leg wrap. So it's actually an enganche where you wrap your leg around the partner leads you to wrap your leg around the other partner. So he started to lead that and she started giggling and her husband started looking like, hold up, what's going on over here? What's all this giggling? Hold up, there's too much kikiing over here. And so I was like, no, continue to work with your partner. Just work through the exercise. And by the end, he was like, okay, that was nice. I'm ready for my partner again. So he ran back across the room and snatched his wife back from that young man. And then, so he kind of anchored it. And then he asked it. And then I said, can I continue this coaching? I want to give you all some homework. And I gave them some homework. They went home. And the reason that I'm taking the time to tell you, because the transformation was amazing. The next week, he came to class 30 minutes early and was like, okay, I'm ready for the next lesson. There's some things I can practice while I'm waiting for her to come. And I was like, sure. I was like, okay, this is unusual. I was like, where is she? He's like, no, she's on her way. But I just wanted to get her to early say exercises were amazing. What else can I work on? She shows up in this knee-length sequin dress, brand new hair color, hairdo, beautiful blouse, had 2 new pairs of tango shoes. Normally she wore skirts all the way down to her ankles. That was her uniform. She looked like a movie star with her black sequin skirt. I was like, okay. She strolled into that class and was like, I'm ready for class. It was like they were a brand new couple, like they had just started dating. And it was so exciting. And I won't tell everybody the exercise I gave them, but I gave them some very, very specific instructions for the next 7 days to practice at home that led to that transformation. So I love this work. It really, really does work. And, that they're a much, much older couple, but, it works across the board.
We love a good transformation inside and out. And showing a little bit of leg, ain't nothing wrong with it, mama. Okay.
I know. She started doing those leg wraps. She's like, I need my leg available.
Yeah. Let's take a little step back and heat things up a little bit. What does tango really reveal about how we show up in relationships? That story, it showed that it can be a great mechanism for change, but what does tango mean to you?
Well, in my heart and core, it's kind of, I guess, in 2 elements. The reason that it kind of took over my life is I realized that unlike all the many other dance forms. And tango was not my first dance form. I started out in African dances throughout the diaspora and the way that African dance influences and impacts culture. But when I started doing the African roots of Argentine tango, I realized it was one of the few dances of all the ones I'd studied and taught that truly required me to show up on the dance floor, mind, body, and spirit. Like tango is not a dance that you can fake. There's too many dynamics. There's too many elements at play on the floor. And when I realized how much of me I had to bring onto the floor, I was like, this is more than just a dance. Like this is a spiritual practice. And so that's what led me on this journey to explore not only the part for me, but then when I started working with others, you know, outside of working with couples in my own journey, I realized it was transforming the way that I was interacting with others, not only my partners on the floor, but off the dance floor. And I had an experience where when they say in tango to become one, I had an experience along those lines that made me, well, I was like, okay, I've got to learn everything there is about this dance so that I can share it with others.
It's beautiful. And I do kind of agree with that. While I was in university, I had some friends and I took some classes of different ballroom types, waltz, foxtrot, tango, contemporary dance. They all have such different elements, and how they connect with people also shows up differently. But like you were saying, the tango, that is one of the most highly passionate dances, in my opinion, that you're right, the two, you have to become one. Because as much as you're individuals, I think what draws people is that playful connection that you and your partner have. Because it also helps that there are a lot of cool turns, spins, and dips to keep things spicy as well.
You're absolutely right. What sets tango apart is the connection. And I will say that there's another element for my dancers in the audience that sets tango, and specifically Argentine tango, apart is that unlike the other dance forms where there's kind of a set pattern that you return to, and they pretty much it's in one space on the floor, you and your partner are in one space. In Argentine tango, you actually go around the floor. It's a progressive dance. So you actually dance around the floor, the entire set of couples in a circle. And so it's a progressive dance. So it's kind of like cars on a highway or cars on a racetrack. So you are not only dancing as a couple, but you as a couple in a unit are moving through traffic, moving through the community and moving through space. So it's a multi-dimensional. So there is no pattern. Like as things are happening on the dance floor, as things are happening with your couple, you're constantly having to change. You're having to adjust. You're having to reconnect. You're having to get back in step with each other and with the floor. And so it really is different because it highlights the interdependence of relationship. Like we tend to be in the US, like me, I first, and then maybe we, like we speak in French. Tango shows you very clearly and very quickly. There is no I, there is no me. There truly is only we, because everything that I do impacts my partner, but not only my partner, but impacts every person in the room, every single thing I do.
I heard Kelly Rowland say this recently, and I thought it was funny. She was like, "Not enough people in the world are speaking French. You know, they say I, but they got to be we." And that is so true in dance, in relationship. That I is important, and we're not asking you to forget about it, but it can be the star.
Yes, and I mean, I'm a relationship person, you know, so I believe in the we. I always tell people it required the cooperation in some way, shape, form, or fashion of two people for every single one of us to be here. So the very basis and foundation of our existence is a we. Whether voluntary, involuntary, whatever the circumstances around your birth, our very existence is steeped and based in a we, in a two people coming together in some way for our creation. And so that's where I start. Like our existence is based on interdependence. Our very life is based on that. So I know it's not very popular in our current culture because our current culture is more get yourself together first and then go out into the world and connect and build with others and maybe have relationship and maybe not. And maybe it works out and maybe it doesn't, but it puts us at the center of the universe. I don't think there's problem in some of what is intended by that. But being a relationship person, I understand that from day one, from your day ones, it required multiple people to be feeding and pouring into you, contributing to you, feeding you literally and figuratively for you to become the I. So once again, everything about you is based and created around a we. So once we get back to that, our relationships can be richer because we have a greater appreciation for them, a gratitude for them, and we understand the importance of other people to the existence of the I.
Now, this might be a small debate
Please.
for anybody who dances in the audience, or who just has a hard time of letting go. Which is actually harder, leading or following in dance and in the bedroom?
Ooh, okay. Now we went from the boardroom to the bedroom. Hold that
That's
now.
right.
Let's go.
Listen, that's a real B&B right there.
The way that I characterize leading and following, and this is something that is a revelation that a lot of my couples have. One of the first takeaways I give, if there's, I know this is usually something that people ask me at the end of the show, but I'll go ahead and give it now, is one things, if you take away nothing else from this conversation other than every relationship is interdependent, is that there is no leader without a follower. So even though from a business standpoint, we think of leadership in a hierarchical fashion where there is a position like an executive or a boss and their subordinates or employees or what have you. In tango and in the dance and in relationships, it's a partnership. So leadership is a position of permission, not a position of power. Okay. Okay, so that's really important. So when you understand that leading and following in the dance is a partnership and it's a position of permission, meaning somebody has to agree to follow you for you to be a leader. As I like to tell playfully, I'm walking backwards in a dress, in high heels. I was doing fine by myself. And so if I'm going to walk backwards in heels, honey, we gotta have some agreements here.
Right.
So I'm giving you permission for me to take myself out of a place of comfort to be under your leadership. And so I need you to honor that permission that I'm giving you. And then the other way I like to say, which is harder, I don't like to say harder or easier because they both have tremendous challenges, both internally and externally. The way that I like to characterize it is like for my math nerds out there, woo-hoo, it's like an equation. You may have different variables on both sides of that equal sign, but they're equal in value. And that's how leading and following are. They bring very different variables to the relationship. They bring very different variables to the equation, but they are definitely equal in value. And they have to be in order for there to be the balance that's needed to dance.
No, that's true. That's been a really big theme, not just in the show, but I think I've just seen it around the world lately is the theme of roles,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're specifically, gendered or partner roles. And some people were like, they don't believe in them. Some people do. But I love, like you said, like you can't have a leader if there's nobody following. And you can't follow if there's nobody leading or instructing. So, and I love that because you're right. They are equally important and they teach you different lessons. So I think it's important that we stay evenly yoked, so to speak. But there's nothing wrong with being in your role as well. The freedom, the trust that comes with following somebody is really rated, and people don't speak about it enough. Because if you don't trust the person who's leading you, you'll step on each other's toes. You might get hurt. You might get dropped because you're too rigid, And he's like, no, you have to relax so I can do the spin, so I can dip you. And to lead, you have to be confident in yourself. And you also have to have vision, which is really important, I think, in relationship as well. Because if you're not confident in what you're bringing to the table, you're going to be really insecure in your relationship. And that's going to show up negatively multiple times. Also, if you don't have vision of what you want to build with this person, what you're trying to create, you'll probably also lose interest, or maybe they'll lose interest, and that'll affect how they trust you. So I love this metaphor of tango in relationships. And it doesn't hurt, like you said, that you're teaching it physically as well. It's always a fun skill to bust out.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if I may, can I add something to the leadership piece? Because
Of
I think
course.
you really nailed it in terms of the trust and the freedom that comes with it. And the only thing I'll add on the followership side without giving it all away is the follower amplifies or makes visible the leader's energy. So it's like for every 2 centimeters that the man leads in energy shows up as 6 to 8 inches in the woman in terms of movement. So, for those who are believers and Christians, like when they say that the woman multiplies, she really, really does. And you can see it very clearly on the dance floor. On the leadership side, two things. Number one is I want to talk about the listening and then the yin and yang of leading. The biggest role of the leader is to keep the follower safe, but then to listen because it's the feedback that he is getting, usually the man who's leading, every single steps that gives him the information that he needs to lead the next step. So, because there is not only your partner and everything that's changing with your partner, but the floor is constantly changing. So you might be, you're like, I'm going to do the step that I learned in class. And then you start the step and then somebody steps in the way. And guess what? You cannot continue that step because it's about to be a rear end collision. So you're going to have to listen to the floor and to your partner to say, okay, I can't lead the rest of this step. I can't lead the rest of this figure. So I'm going to have to lead something else. Or she might be off balance now because of something that happened. And so you have to be listening in the moment that I can feel my partner's off balance, or I can feel tension in her, or I can feel something is going different and I have to pay completely attention. I can remedy that in that step before I lead the next thing. So it's like this constant, I lead and then I follow my lead. I lead and then follow my lead. And so it's kind of a circle and cycle of energy and information that's going on in the dance. And I lead that too because it's like yin and yang, because we tend to think of roles like yin and yang, masculine and feminine. But as I say, everybody seems to forget the little circles in yin and yang.
Yeah.
And so in the yang, there is yin, and in the yin, there is yang. So in the leadership, there is the following element within that. And within the followership, there is a leadership element to that. So the leadership element is to give feedback, to give understanding, to give clarity is what the follower is giving the leader. But the leader is leading and then listening, following his lead to understand better his partner and receive that information so that he can lead the next thing or the next idea. So it's a beautiful dance of energies, information, and the roles kind of being dynamic within that.
Love that this naturally brought us into our next question, which was, have you ever danced with somebody and instantly just felt that connection, or instantly was like, I don't know if this is going to work?
I've experienced both ends of the spectrum. Usually with it's not going to work, I usually can determine that before we get into the embrace and on the floor. It's rare that nowadays, especially because I've been dancing so long, it's rare that I have to abandon ship on the floor. Though if there's a kind of a breakdown in boundaries, respect, or, someone's getting hurt, those are reasons to, leave the floor. But usually when you get on the floor, you're committing to dance those 3 dances with that person. So in the invitation, there's an energy exchange and information exchange. And in tango, you don't just walk up to the partner and invite them to dance. You actually invite them with your gaze and they accept with eye contact before they come over on the floor. So you can deny the invitation or avoid the invitation or not accept an invitation long before they come on the floor. So usually I can tell from how I'm getting the vibe from the invitation. I don't think I'm going to accept it. The energy is a little bit off. We're not going to be on the same page. In terms of being that instant click, that's what started me on this journey. That's why I'm here on this couch years later. I had a beautiful dance and I wrote about it in my book, It Takes Two to Tango, with a gentleman named Dave, where it was not only an instant connection and like we were one person, but once I got into his embrace, it was like the whole world dissolved. And that was my first time experiencing it. And it was a really crowded dance floor. And I kept opening my eyes because I was like, this room was just crowded. Like, why do I feel like there's only two people in the room? And it was that kind of experience of that merging where I started to hear his thoughts that's literally started me on this journey.
Rihanna said it best. I want you to make me feel like I'm the only girl in the world. I mean, dance really does have that ability
Hmm.
when you have a partner who just gets you,
Hmm.
because they really can make or break the whole experience. Whether you fall in love with it, whether you're unsure if this is the right dance for you, whether it feels like I could go on forever.
Hmm.
When you have the right partner, you're like, wait, it's over? Like, are you sure it's been 3 songs? I could assume we just got started. Yeah.
You taking the words right out of my mouth.
Linda, listen, I tried.
And I'm going to run with that because when people talk about how, in their relationships, their partner, they get bored with them and they want to seek energy and entertainment or, kind of excitement. And as you said several times, that spice outside of a relationship. When it comes to tango, it's like, I don't know nothing about that. Because you said it so beautifully that when you have a partner that you click with, you're just on the same page, you're dancing. When the music stops, you're like, wait, not only does it not stop, but let's keep going. The other piece of that is when you're understanding that you're having this conversation and creating together, it's like the passion and the energy and the creativity never ends, even though you're working with the same partner, because there's so much that you can explore. There's so much that you can create together that you see that. It's so funny. I was having this thought this morning. When you're working with a professional partners, as an example, after a while, professional partners, they don't want to dance with anybody else because no one gets them. No one understands them like their partner. And they have enough trust where they can explore all these new steps, these new ideas, these new concepts. They can create new concepts. They can create new choreography with each other for years and years and years and never get bored. And so when people take that kind of insight to their relationships, they can really make their life partner their tango partner for life.
We love a good penguin situation where you mate for life, and I think that's true in dance and relationship. That when somebody gets you, they get you, and you don't really want to get that up.
Hmm.
You'll put in a lot of work. You'll sacrifice to keep them there because they just make everything better.
They do. They do. And it's really important for us to understand that when you have that, don't ever take it for granted. We've all heard you don't know what you've got until it's gone. And we've heard it so much, but many people, not everybody, but a lot of people are still not taking the wisdom out of that. It's like, well, don't lose it to learn it. If the last 1,000 people have taught you that or shared that with you, that wisdom, don't take for granted. If you got it, don't take it for granted. You don't have to make the mistake to learn the lesson. And I think there's value in that. Like when you have it, take the wisdom from others, hold on to it, keep it, nurture it, love it, be grateful for it while you have it, because you don't want to lose it to learn that I wish I had never given that up, so to speak.
I feel like some lessons you can't learn in isolation. And what I mean by that specifically in this case is the lesson that pairs really well with that is the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Because usually
Absolutely.
that's what leads you to losing it or realizing what you had a little too late.
Hmm.
It's because you see something or you're just curious. The idea of something is just so great, so monument in your head that you start neglecting
Hmm.
current partnership or situation that you're in. And once somebody feels abandoned, they lose that sense of trust. It makes it really hard to tango,
Hmm.
so to speak. And like I said, so I feel like you have to learn both those lessons because if you don't, lesson one will cause you to learn lesson two.
Yes. I agree. That's a beautiful. And as we evidenced by my opening couple, not to speak anything negative or put any assumptions on them because I knew them very, very well. But when you've been with a partner a long time, you can assume that you know everything there is to know about them. You assume that you know what they can and cannot do. And so therefore you're looking for someone to be able to do that 20% that they can't. And it was a beautiful moment because one of the things that I heard in the conversation with the young man working with the more mature lady, he said something beautiful that I think a lot of people miss. Is she was apologizing for her limitations, like your partner is so beautiful and she's so flexible. There's all these things that she can do. I'm sorry that I can't do those things. And his words to her, which were just like poetry when I overheard them, he was like, we're not going to worry about that. Let's see what we can do. So even though he had the partner, he was like, I'm not interested and concerned in this moment with what I was doing over there in the past with my partner. Like I'm interested in what we can create together. And that gave her an ease that she was all of a sudden able to do these things that she didn't even know she could do. And so sometimes that trust and that ease and that reassurance that we give our partner will unlock things that are within them that even they didn't know was possible just because, like you said, watering and tending to the grass that we have. And then the next week she looked like a brand new person. It was like, okay, mama, she like came with a new outfit, new hairdo, new swag. He gave her some attention, some love, looked at her with a new set of eyes and a new woman showed up. And so I think there's a lot that we can learn from that as well.
We talked about in tango how you commit for 3 songs.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just need a little quickie, just one song, one brief moment to strut your stuff, so to speak. And this is the segment in this show. It's our quickie questions. It's one of my favorite parts of the show. The name of the show is the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad. What is your current relationship status?
I'm currently single.
Every unpartnered person will find a partner at some point.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And sometimes there's a lot of work you can do on your own. So we love an unpartnered person here. Next question. In your life, do you tend to enjoy leading or following in love a little bit more?
In love, I get to do a lot of leading professionally. So I love the role of being a follower. I love it. Now, I didn't start out that way, but I love following.
I think that's really common. Last night, I was having a game night with my friends, and somebody asked, the question was, what do you think is really sexy in a partner? And for me, my answer was, as a man, I love a woman where I feel comfortable enough to surrender, because so often we're asked to be the leaders in so many situations or the protector, but sometimes you just want to surrender yourself to a person. And that doesn't necessarily mean be submissive. But like I said, just surrender is so beautiful to me. So I understand that. The sexiest tango move that should not be attempted after a glass of wine or two is what?
The sexiest tango move. That's a tough one. Colgadas, I'll say. And that's a very, very specific one where it takes the woman off her counterbalance. The man takes her off her balance in a very extreme way. And he has to counterbalance equally for that to work. If you're not fully sober, then I don't recommend that you do colgadas. But it's a very, very sexy move because it requires a tremendous amount of trust.
Alrighty, last question. Last time somebody made you blush on the dance floor, what did they do?
Wow. Whenever the dance moves into true conversation mode, it makes me smile and laugh and giggle. And what I mean by that is the leader stops practicing what they've learned, and I can feel that. And they start listening to what I'm doing and respond exactly to that. And when they start responding exactly to that, it's like someone having a conversation with someone and you say something and they say something back that lets you know that they're not only there with you, they were listening to every word. And you're like, okay, I'm feeling heard. I'm feeling seen.
Are you picking up what I'm putting down? No, I get it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. That when they start doing that in the dance and it's really like super focused on what are you saying? Okay, I'm going to respond to that. What are you saying? Oh, it's the most luscious thing in the world. Finger
I think it's
licking
called
good.
body language for a reason.
It really is.
Well, Linda, that was so much fun. And I love how deep of a topic this was, but you made it seem so light and so riveting. As we head into the end game of this episode, is there anything that you really just want to share with the audience about you, about Tutu Tango, just about life?
I mean, everybody has heard my passion for tango and using that both literally and figuratively off the dance floor. At the centerpiece of that is my messaging around love. And just like tango is not just a physical dance, it is a physical, mental, and emotional experience and a spiritual practice that you can use in all areas of life. What kind of fuels that is love. And I think love is beyond something that's romantic. It is a physical, mental, emotional energy and force that you can use in your life. And so when you have those two coming together, you can use this tango thing to transform every single relationship that you have.
And tell everybody where they can find you and what does the rest of 2025 look like for you?
Oh, wow. Well, you can always find me on my socials, Linda D, like dance, lindadsutton.com, or the Tutu Tango Show with two twos. You can find me on my socials. Of course, I've mentioned the two books that you'll see in the link below. It Takes Two to Tango, and So You Think You Can't Dance. And in 2025, I'm looking to do, we'll see some special events.
Guys, thank you so much for making it through another episode of the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad. Don't forget to go show this amazing soul some love. All of Linda's contacts, links will be down below in the description. You know how to do it. Just a little click to get everything riveting and ready to go. And I will see all you amazing partnered and unpartnered people next week for an all new episode of the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad.
Bachelor Pad. Ciao.